Hey everybody, Gov20 Cop here, going to a part 2 of maintenance, weapons maintenance. We're going to be talking about maintaining a modern sporting rifle, or AR15, and this will go to all AR platforms in the sense of AR15s, AR10s, whether it be a carbine rifle or pistol variants. Again, we're going to start with our 4 safety rules. All guns are always loaded. Never let your muzzle cover anything you're unwilling to destroy. Keep your finger off the trigger till your sights are indexed on target, decision sheet's been made, and know your target, what's behind it, what's in front of it, and surroundings. Okay, so what we have here is one of my personal rifles that I just finished building up. It's a Ruger AR556. Nothing special by any means. I've got LWRCs. I've got some custom builds. I've had POFs. There's some variants in those because those may be piston driven, but this is a direct impingement. I mean, it is a gas system, not piston driven variant. It's got some furniture on it, but don't let that confuse you. It's just a standard AR-15 from Ruger. So this is about as basic as you can get with it. So you can't get the whole thing in the frame, but this is the main part that you need to worry about, and I'll talk through everything. So like in the pistol video that I literally just shot, you still need a few items. So those items are going to be, you'll need some type of lubrication, you'll need some kind of CLP, a cleaner, you'll need some solvent for the bore, the controversy Q-tips, I use them, they work fine. Patches for caliber specific or large patches, and you cut them to what the length you need. A brush of some sort. On an AR-15 platform, I think picks are a great idea. If you don't have picks, you can use the copper brush. With that, you'll need your cleaning kit for your AR-15. So I've got a lot of different pieces in here. You'll need 22 caliber copper brush. Okay, I think a bore snake's a great idea. If you don't have a copper brush, a bore snake's a great idea to clean the barrel. I'm going to go over 2 different ways to clean a barrel, one utilizing the bore snake, another one utilizing rods. If you are going to utilize rods, I recommend using one of these. I don't know what it's called. I'm going to call it the I think it's a bore guide. A bore guide, basically for short, the doohickey that will keep you from scratching your barrel. All right, so bore guide, doohickey thing. If you're going to use a rod, if space is limited, you can use multi-length rods, but I highly suggest using a one-piece rod. Especially for you precision guys. If you got a precision AR-15, this is not a precision AR-15, but if you have a precision AR-15 that you're looking at shooting long distance and being very accurate, you don't want to take a chance of a multi-piece rod bending and hurting your bore any. A one-piece rod with a bore guide is definitely the way to go. So yeah, I think that's all. Okay, so this has been inspected. We have an empty magazine well. We have an empty chamber. There's nothing in here. Keep your fingers out of this area. If you ever hear anybody tells you to visually and physically inspect your bore, meaning to stick your finger in there to make sure there's nothing in there, reevaluate that person, please. There's no need to put your finger in something that you can visually see, because these are spring powered, and whenever the spring goes off, that could get your finger. So that could cut you, that could maim you, that could hurt, it will hurt. And if it's a bigger caliber, I've seen it take off a finger. So keep your fingers out of mechanical items, okay? And that's all I'll say about that. All right, so how are we gonna clean this? All right, so we're gonna first break it down. It's got an upper and lower receiver. So we're gonna take our takedown pins, we're gonna push those takedown pins out. Takedown pins are located here. This is your rear takedown pin. This is your front takedown pin. You're gonna push those out. Your front one may be a little tight. They both may be tight, but your front one typically is a little tighter. I like to take my brush or your toothbrush. Get out of there. Give it a little love. Get it started. And you can pull it. And that's going to separate your upper receiver from your lower receiver. Okay? So, lower receiver maintenance is actually pretty easy. Again, there's inspection clean and then there's functionally clean. I am worried about functionally clean. I'm not going to teach you how to do inspection clean because that will take hours. All right, so we take a rag, get all the excess oil. If it's your first rifle, you just bought it, you need to get all that packing grease and stuff out of it. All right, you're going to put the weapon on fire. You're going to put some positive pressure on the hammer, the trigger hammer here, this doohickey. All right, put some positive pressure on it, pull the trigger and let it come forward. We never let this go forward without something in front of it, because if it hits, it can hit this receiver, it can break your hammer, and you don't want that. You don't want to break the hammer, you don't want to break your magazine catch, your bolt release, bolt stop, bolt release. You don't want it to break any of that. So we put some positive pressure on it and make sure she's good to go. So we're gonna get all that old oil out. If there's any grime or dirt, because you will have some carbon get blown back in here, you're just gonna give a good little visual inspection. This one looks pretty clean. It's a pretty new rifle. I'm not too worried about it. And that's really all you gotta do. So you take some oil with a little dropper on, maybe hit the springs with the drop, just to help prevent if they don't have a coating, if you don't know. I don't know. I like putting a little bit of oil on my springs and anywhere there's metal to metal. So where my trigger bar meets, anytime I have any kind of metal to metal contact. So just a hair drop of oil. It's a little too much on that one. Yeah, just a little bit, just a wee bit. All right, so, and then you're gonna inspect your buffer and buffer buffer spring and buffer. So you gotta push this down, and there's a little indentation there. That's a nipple. It's called a nipple. You gotta push that down, and that's gonna release your buffer spring and buffer. It is under spring pressure. It will fly out. Okay, just look at it. All right. You can pull it out if you want. You can take it apart if you want. I just make sure that it's not really dirty. If I put my hand around it and I can see that it's a little moist, a little wet, to me, that's completely fine. Because as your bolt's cycling, it's gonna lube this inside. Now, whenever it gets really, really dirty, after you've shot it a while and you touch it and it's black, wipe it down. Just wipe it down and set it back in there. And you're just gonna drop it back in there, push it, and she's good to go. Really, for the most part, that's really all you've got to do to clean your lower receiver. Get inside the magazine well a little bit, clean your magazine well from any dirt and debris, but really that's all there is to it. If you got carbon around your bolt catch, this thing right here, wipe it off and clean it, but unless it's being really sticky or finicky, it's probably fine. Okay, so we're gonna set that to the side. All right, now here is the monster. All right, this one's gonna take a little bit. All right, you're going to pull the charging handle out, and that's gonna start pulling your bolt out. Grab your bolt carrier group, set it to the side, grab your charging handle, get out of there, set it to the side. All right, so now we have an upper receiver with no bolt carrier group or charging handle. All right, so we're gonna go to our bore cleaning process. Now, if you don't have rods, use your bore snake. I'm gonna show you both. Bore snake goes down the upper receiver, So down the bore. All right. Start pulling it through. You'll feel it get tight. And when you pull this through, you get a good positive motion, grip on it, okay? And you don't want to pull to a side. You don't want to pull left, up, down, left, right, anything like that. You want to pull straight out, not touching the barrel. You don't want to get more wear on one side of the barrel or not. You just pull straight through. One solid motion. One solid motion. Don't stop. If you stop, it means you can stop that process. You can stop carbon coming out, okay? So that's how you use a bore snake. All right. Now, if you're going to use a guide, I don't have my lifters with me to raise this up. Make sure it specifies it can be used with an AR, and it's going to have a little adapter here for AR15. This will slide into here. All right. That goes into the breech. This little pin goes here to kind of lock it in. All right. That'll lock it in. And then your rods, all right. I've got a 3-piece rod, my 1-piece rod I've got loaned out right now. And I'm not gonna actually do this. I'm gonna stick with the bore snake today, but I'm just showing you. This is a 3-piece rod, but if you had a 1-piece is what I recommend. Actually, maybe I do have all the pieces here. Oh, hey-oh, I've got all the pieces. Okay, I'll do it. I lied, I'll do it. All right. So like I said, these patches are large. They're 30 caliber patches. If I try to push this patch through this bore, ain't happening, okay? So I'm gonna rip it into about quarters. All right, so I get a small patch. Take that small patch, put some solvent on it, okay? Now, these are specific. You have a 22 caliber punch you could use. I'm not gonna use that today because that's a little bit overkill for an AR. For my precision guns, I do use that. Or you can use this right here. This is what we're gonna use. It's the wrong size. Of course it is. Of course it is. That's okay because I've got more stuff that probably won't fit. Get out of there. This is another type of bore snake. That's like an Otis cleaning kit, a bore snake. These work great too. So I've probably got enough parts in here to make multiple cleaning kits. That's not gonna fit either. What in tarnation? Some bull hockey. Okay. Typically, you'd have a piece that goes in here, and for some reason, I am having that's why, maybe, no, that don't fit either. Let me guess, this one doesn't either. That one doesn't either. That's some just garbage. Not gonna use that. Anyways, if you had a 1-piece rod or a rod, you attach something like this or this caliber specific, and you'd push it through your guide through the end of the barrel. And then you would remove it from the end of the barrel, pull your rod out, and you do that a couple of times. Since I don't have the right materials for that, well, what we'll do is we'll actually use this thing that I said would work, because it does work, and I've got the pieces for that. Son of... Can't get nothing right. All right, so we're gonna use the guide, and then you guys are gonna make believe this is an actual guide rod or a bore rod. So this goes through here, it goes through the bore, comes out the end of the barrel. All right. One solid push through, one solvent. Do it again. I like going 3 times, just like when I visually inspect my chamber. I do it 3 times always. Well, I do solvent 3 times, I do brushes 3 times, and I do dry patches double of what I did, so 6 times. That's me. That may be OCD. It may actually work. There's not really a doctrine on how you do this. Okay. Note, whenever you're doing this, you're going to notice, like you're going to feel this line, or if you're using a rod, twist. That's why we use the end of the rod. If we use the very end of the rod, it spins freely. Let it spin freely. Let me grab this garbage one again. Good thing I didn't throw it very far. It spins freely. So that's why we grab here, because this is going to twist with the rifling of the barrel. And we don't want to keep it from doing that. We want it to twist with the rifling of the barrel to make sure that we aren't damaging the lands and grooves. So we've got the solvent in there. We're going to let that sit for a second. Let that sit for a second. I'm going to keep that guide rod in there. Oh, Kodiak cakes are hurting. All right. Then we're going to move over, while we're letting that solvent do its thing, we're going to move over to the bolt carrier group. So the bolt carrier group carries your bolt. All right. So to remove that, to take it, start its disassembly process, there's a takedown pin. A lot of this one is, Brigger was actually kind of cool and put a little notch here where you can get it with your fingernail or your finger and just pull it out. A lot of standard bolts are going to be recessed, so that's where a dental pick or something small, some kind of pick or a fingernail. I've always just used my fingernail to get it out. So you're going to pull that firing pin retaining pin. That's what it's called, a firing pin retaining pin. You're going to get that out. And we're going to use our charging handle as a little holder. Don't lose that. If you lose that, this is just the paperweight, okay? That's going to release your firing pin, because that was the firing pin retaining pin. It retains the firing pin. Then when you remove that, there's nothing to retain the firing pin, so your firing pin comes out. Your firing pin will probably be more silver in color, a chrome moly or chrome lined firing pin, okay? So we're gonna wipe that down, we're gonna inspect it, we're gonna feel for burrs, anything that feels abnormal, all right? And we're gonna get the rest of it taken apart before we go to how to clean it, all right? We'll set that inside our charging handle, okay? So then you're gonna take your bolt. This is the bolt, this is the bolt carrier. This is the bolt. You're gonna push your bolt in if it's not already pushed in. You got a little piece here. That's called a cam lug. It's your cam. You gotta rotate that 90 degrees where it is horizontal with the bolt. Okay, it's parallel to this thing right here. This thing's called a gas key. If you're piston driven, it's not a gas key. It's a striker plate or something. It'd be called something different. That's where a piston strikes it. All right, but this is your gas key. You want that cam lug to be parallel with it. You're gonna give it some love. Cam lug's going to pop out. You know, wipe it down, get the old oil off, and then again, we're using our charging handle as its little tray. And then that will allow you to take your bolt out. Oh God, it's slippery. All right, so wipe down your bolt, and what you're gonna see on a bolt that is direct impingement, not piston driven. If you're piston driven, you won't have third world problems like this. Okay, that's where you're going to get a lot of your copper fouling. You're going to get a lot of carbon buildup. I don't know. I see people do this on YouTube to make it more visible. I'm not doing it right. Look inside here. It's going to look nasty. All right. So that's where you can take some solvent. We're going to take some solvent and put some on there. let that sit for a second, start eating that away. And then we'll go ahead, and while that's doing its stuff, we're gonna go ahead and go to our bolt carrier. So now this is just the bolt carrier. We're gonna wipe it down, start getting all the nastiness off. So it doesn't matter really how much you shoot this carbine rifle, what variant you have, unless it's a piston driven. Piston runs much cleaner. I have a piston driven, and one of the main reasons I bought it, other than it being known to be very reliable, is I don't have to clean it as much. And that's a lazy way of thinking, but I maybe put 25 rounds out of this yesterday, and I mean, it's already filthy. So we're gonna wipe this down, get it nice and clean. Inside here, you'll look down and you'll see some carbon buildup in there. What I like to do is take my rag, stick it inside there, take my brush, and just give it a little whirly twirl inside there. If it's really bad, Gerber, not the baby formula company, the knife company, Gerber, makes a good job. It's an M-lock piece. Gerber makes a really cool tool. By all means, this is not necessary. Makes a really cool tool that's made for cleaning the AR, and it's got a front side adjustment tool. You can tighten your buffer tube. It's pretty cool. I don't even know what it's called. It's a buffer, no, I don't know what this is called. The bolt carrier sharp scraper. No, it's made by Gerber. It's an AR15 cleaning tool. It's there, but it's got this bolt carrier scraper that goes down to this area. You can hit it here, tap it, and it scrapes that carbon out of that bolt carrier. Not necessary, but if you're getting inspection clean, it will definitely help you there. So again, we're looking for any burrs, taking our finger, running for any burrs, any sharp edges, anything that looks like it could have some malfunctions. You're gonna see some wear marks in the back of the back of the bolt carrier, and that's where, if this was your buffer tube, actually we'll just use the lower here. This sits like this inside here, and as it cycles, this goes back into the buffer, and that's part of your cycle of action. So you're gonna see some wear marks for where this guides into that buffer tube. So if we see wear marks, we probably need to put a little lubrication in it. So we're not to lubing yet, but keep that in mind. So we've disassembled our bolt carrier group. We've kind of cleaned this, so we're gonna clean inside here. We're gonna wipe it all down. If we see any carbon buildup, so any black chunky stuff, or if it looks like an off green or gray color, we will wipe that down. If it's kind of thick and it's not coming, you can take your pick and scrape at it. If you don't have a pick, you can take a brush, a toothbrush, and scrape at it. We just don't want to use anything that is a harder metal than the metal you're working with. So you don't know the metal you're working with, a good thing to always use is nylon or copper. So I don't have a copper brush, but if you have a spare brush for the barrel, you can use that. I keep an old one with me. This is the old one that I use. I could scrape with this, and it's not going to damage it. It's not going to damage the metal of the bolt or the bolt carrier. Okay, so we're going to move to the bolt, cleaning the bolt. Again, we're going to wipe it down. Since we had solvent on it, we're going to wipe that solvent off, because we don't want to just put it together with solvent. So we're going to see if that solvent actually did the hard work for us, and it did pretty good. It did some of the hard work for us, so it knocked a lot of that carbon buildup up. So that's good. All right. Like I said, this was an inexpensive weapon. I mean, this isn't even microparticle inspected, MPI inspected. So, I mean, that may be something in the future that I'll look at upgrading, is the bolt or the bolt carrier in this, the whole thing. But if the solvent didn't do the hard work and there's still some chunks there, that's when you can take your copper brush, hit this area, get that copper out. If you don't have that, the Gerber tool is a softer metal than the bolt, so they say. So you can use that. You can use the scraper here to get it off. All right, you can do that. Don't use your knife, especially if you have a high quality knife. Don't use your knife. I'm guilty of doing that earlier on in the military to get these things inspection clean, and just don't do it. You don't need to do it. If there's a little copper on here, it's not going to hurt. Your gas rings here, some people are saying, well, make sure they're not all the holes are in different spots. They will be naturally. If you line up every one of these holes on these gas rings, and put it back together, the chances are very high that they're no longer going to be together within like 10 minutes. So I've never seen it cause a malfunction. Don't worry about it. I went to several AR15 armorers courses. They're also saying not to worry about it. Don't worry about it. That's old wives' tale kind of thing. Okay, that may have been the Vietnam era of these weapons where they were having issues when the government was pushing them out so fast. The M16 variants that they are having issues. So another thing that you can do, this is not necessary and it's not really, it's a little bit more in depth. You've got a little roller pin here. If you punch that roller pin out in your bolt, there's a roller pin that goes right here. If you punch that out, that's going to let you have access to your extractor. Just inspect your extractor, make sure the claw is whole, it looks good, it's not chipped or anything. Wipe it off, clean it. Okay, don't lose that extractor roll pin. Take your roll pin, put it back in. Okay, all right, so you're good. So your bolt is clean. Firing pin. Look at the base of the firing pin in this area. You want to clean some carbon off that. If it's bad, again, if you need to spray it with solvent, spray it with solvent. Use your nylon brush, use your copper brush, use something just to scrape that carbon off the bottom of that. Give it a good little 1-2 there. This one's pretty good. All right. Cam pin's already clean. And now we're going to reassemble the bolt. So what I like to do is I like to take some oil, a couple of drops of oil, just coat the bolt. Just coat it, the whole thing. Coat the bolt. All right. So you got to hold it straight through. And what you can't see through the camera is one side of these holes are typically a little smaller than the other. Look for your extractor, okay? All right. Look for your extractor, and you want it to be on the same side as this indentation. You put the extractor on the same side as the indentation. You push it in. You'll have to put some force behind it. Take your cam pin. Drop your cam pin in there, into that hole. And you may have to play around with it a little bit, but it will go. Okay. Then, since we rotated it to get it out, we're going to rotate it 90 degrees again. Okay. Doesn't matter which direction, just rotate it 90 degrees. Take your firing pin, cup around the bolt, drop your firing pin. It's got to go inside your bolt. Take your firing pin retaining pin, put it back through that little hole. It can and it probably will be a pain in the butt to get it all the way through. It's got to go all the way through. It can't stop out like that, okay? So you got to kind of play around with it until it makes its way through. It probably will be a pain in the butt. If it's not a pain in the butt, you won that battle. Good for you. fine is going to be a pain in the butt. Get in there. Okay, got in there. We're going to set that to the side. But your bolt is together. It should lock and unlock freely and be good to go. All right. Now we're going to move up to the upper. So we've let that solvent kind of do its thing, and it's doing what solvent does. All right. Now I'm going to take my, maybe this one will work with that. Maybe what I do with it. Do you all know what I did with that? Oh, maybe this one will fit. It won't. No, that's wrong. All right, so bringing the upper back on. I still got my guide rod in here, or my bore guide in here. All right, I'm gonna take my little bore brush, a 22 caliber bore brush. I've got, if anybody needs a bore snake, I've got too many of them. Just come get one. They're free. Okay. I'm going to insert the bore brush in there because we let that solvent sit in there for a while. Let it do its magic, and make sure you're using a 22 caliber because that's what a 5.56 223 is. It's 22 caliber. And again, we're going to start it. We're going to get a good firm grip. One continuous motion all the way out. We're going to do that how many times? That's right, 3 times. Or however many you feel like you need to do it. Whoop. And one more. $30 So awesome. No one's gonna watch this video. All right, so I've got that in there. I'll put that back into the save for later pal. So you may ask yourself, go 20 cop, what's next? We're going to do dry patches again. So again, we have our little quarter here. Now, if this is a precision rifle, doesn't matter what caliber, change your patch every time. Change your patch every time. So you gotta run it through, change your patch, run it through, change your patch, run it through, change your patch. For an AR, it's not really a precision weapon. If it's holding 3 MOA at 100 yards, I'm happy. It's met the standard. All right, so I'm gonna do this about 6 times. Basically, I'm just getting any residue of that solvent out of there. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I can tell it's getting cleaner. And 6. All right, 6 times. And you can see in our little patch here, we actually got some gooiness out of it. All right. So I'm going to remove my bore guide. Obviously, I have a spot to work at that you can find stuff if you easily drop things like I do. Again, I'm going to look at the bore just because it makes me feel better. All right. Now, that's how you clean your barrel. So either a bore snake, I run a bore snake for in between major cleanings, a multi-piece or single piece guide rod, bore rod with a bore guide, highly advisable, or you can get one of these bore snakes that's kind of probably part of a just all-in-one cleaning kit. They work fine. I would still kind of say this is a good option even if you're using one of those, but it's not necessary. So now I'm going to clean the inside inside of the where the bolt carrier goes, inside the upper receiver, the chamber area, not the chamber, inside the upper receiver, where the bolt carrier lies, because you're gonna have some blowback and some carbon area inside there. There's a little half moon shape in here. I don't know, let's see if we can get some light. That little half moon area in there. Carbon will build up in there. This is where a scraper is good, just to get the carbon buildup out of that area. This one's got a little bit in it. You'll see your gas tube coming out from there. Don't need to really do anything with that. You want to try to clean under it, you can. It will be kind of a pain to get, but you just kind of want to clean any major carbon areas from there. All right. All right. Then there's the star chamber. So the star chamber is the same pattern as your lugs on your bolt. All right. A flashlight's always a good tool to have in your clean kit as well. So that's star chamber. I think very, very in the front there where my light's at, that's your star chamber. And inside there where the lugs lock, you really want to clean. That's what is going to foul up and gum up if you're gonna have an issue. It's probably gonna be with the star chamber and your that area being fouled up. So I take some CLP, some cleaner lubricant protectant. I don't use solvent in that area. I take my CLP and I'm gonna coat that inside of that with that CLP. Everywhere else, all I was basically doing is getting that old oil and lube from where I shot out. So take that CLP, get it in there, and let that kind of sit just for a second. And then I take a clean Q-tip and I start getting in there all nice and deep. Making sure I get as much carbon as I can out of there, because that's where it's going to build up. It's going to build up a lot there, especially if it's a long day of shooting. If you're going, doing the right thing and taking tactical classes or taking self-defense classes and carbine classes, and shooting hundreds and hundreds of rounds, getting that good training from a good reputable source, being a responsible gun owner. That will get dirty. This one's not too bad. All right, so to me, based on what I've seen, I feel like this carbine is functionally clean. It's functionally clean. It's not inspection clean. It would not pass inspection in the military, nor do I care if it does. I don't. All right, so now we got the bolt together. We have our charging handle. Charging handle, cleaning it. This is how you clean charging handle. Just whoop, whoop. Just get all that excess oil off from it. Did have some metal shavings right there, and I think I see what it's from. It is, yes, it's just some metal shaving. It's just where it's a new one in that where I do a single head charge, that some extra pressure there. Probably will upgrade the charging handle over time. So here a little bit. So put a drop on the charging handle of oil, little coat there. There's a little notch here that will line up with a notch inside the upper receiver. I drop that in there like so. Okay. Again, I forgot, the whole time we're doing this, we're expecting for gouges, foul, metal shavings, stuff like that shouldn't be there. If it's a new rifle, you may have a little bit, or a new carbine, you may have a little bit. So we've already lubed our bolt. Now we're going to lube the bolt carrier, some oil all around it, not dripping. We just want a nice coat of oil all over the bolt to help prevent from rust and make sure it's functioning. Same thing with here, just take a couple of drops of oil inside upper receiver. Get inside where the bolt carrier rides. Not inside the star chamber. We don't, because you don't want any oil to get inside the barrel, so we don't put anything in the star chamber. All right, we're ready to put our bolt in. All right, make sure your lugs are out. These are in. Make sure the lugs are out. Set your gas key inside your charging handle and push them together. Ta-da! All right. Now we take the upper receiver and the lower receiver and we put them together. Put your pins together. Again, these front pins could be hard. They'll go in. All right. Weapon's on safe. Charge the weapon. Pull the trigger. Nothing should happen. Put the weapon on fire or semi. Hammer should fall. Charge the weapon. Let it go. Slowly it out. Metallic click. Sounds good. Pull the trigger again. Hammer should fall. Charge the weapon. Finger off the trigger. Weapon on safe. Now, you're back together. You have a functional weapon. Come up here, do an operations check. Make sure the bolt's where it needs to be. Close your dust cover. That lets you know that you've got it done. Okay. All right. Then we go back to our silicone rag that we mentioned in the first one. Wipe down the barrel. If you want to clean the inside of your flash hider, you can. I'm not going to really worry about it because I got another flash hider that will mount to my suppressors on the way, so I'm not too worried about it. Anything that's metal is what I'm wiping down on both sides. Optics again, you got optics. Just make sure your glass is clean. Use a microfiber rag or something. My arm's cramping up. Oh, it's cramping up. Okay, it's just gonna cramp. It's fine. It's fine. And that's okay. All right. Drink water. Water's a crutch. All right, put my sling back together, and then we have cleaned an AR-15, Armalite 15, modern sporting rifle style weapon. All right, that is done. So, step by step, you saw me do it. It took me, with explaining it, took me 43 minutes to do it. It may take you longer. Your results may vary. It may take you shorter. You may, Uncle Joe Bud may have said that I don't know nothing, I do a different way. Whatever. That's what works for me. That's what I've always done in the recent years, where I've become more, when I say recent years, past 10 or so years, now I've used this weapon or a similar variant of this weapon in multiple different situations. That's how you clean it, okay? So if you know a better way, I'd like to hear it. If you think there's a more efficient way, I'd like to hear it. I definitely will give it a shot. I'm not going to say you're wrong. You know, I'm a student of this just as much as anybody else. So leave your comments below, subscribe, give me a like, and if you want to see more content like this, which you probably don't, being at 43 minutes, just let me know. So if you have any questions, I'm here to help. All right. Thank you.